The question that I think is important is, what do you learn from it? And I think what you learn from it, and history repeats itself, is not to follow. Yeah. So in that example, just because everybody else is doing subprime loans, or just because everybody is doing something and making lots of money, doesn't mean that you should just blindly follow, right? You should stop and say, does this make sense for me, right? Do the numbers make sense? Is it seem to be right? And when something doesn't smell right, you got to scratch your head and go, I don't know. And it's hard because your friends are over there driving fancy car, and you're like, what's going on, right?
Right.
But I think it's important, again, for the younger generation to take that, it's no differently than, all my friends are getting rich off of Bitcoin, or all my friends are doing. Okay, it doesn't mean that you should do it. You make your own decisions. You're not always going to be right. Back to what I said earlier, right? Life is fair, not in our time frame. So you may feel like, my gosh, I feel like I'm making good decisions for the better part of a year, yet my friends live in a nicer apartment, driving fancy cars, living it up at the nightclub. But what is going on, right?
Right.
Okay, that's short term, right? Life's it's a marathon, right? It's not a sprint. So I know it's hard short term to do the right thing, but if it doesn't seem right and you've actually invested the time to do the math, right? You never want to say, hey, I invested in ABC and it's been doing great, and have somebody say, oh, well, tell me about ABC. I don't really know what they do. What? This is your money, right?
That's a big one that I've even felt prey to. Is just we want to invest and close our eyes and say, it's making me money, I don't care. But if you don't really understand, then you're probably throwing stuff at the wall and hoping it sticks, which is what has happened in the cryptocurrency space. And you've seen the dramatic drop now. And then you see the same talks where it starts to stabilize and creep its way back up. And it's like, oh, it's coming back, guys. And you get that same sensation of, oh, I missed it on the first one, I'm going to get it on this one. And you're chasing something you really don't understand.
Well, and so if you think about your dad's point about 2008, you think about Bernie Madoff, you think about Bankman-Fried and the cryptocurrency. You hear people time and time say this, right? Well, it won't happen to me,
right?
Until it does. And when it does, and this may not be a professional term, but it sucks. Because when it happens to you, you look in the mirror and go, oh my God, I never even met this guy. I didn't even do what was I thinking? Like, God, right? Now, it's kind of like I say to when my kids studied for a test, I would say, look, here's the deal. If you do poorly on a test and you say to yourself, you know what? I studied like crazy. I gave it my all. I, didn't go to that party on Friday. Okay, you should be perfectly happy, right? Look, I didn't do well, but there's nothing else I could have done. But if you fail a test and you say to yourself, yeah, you know what, I kind of blew it off. Yeah, I would be disappointed. Right. So if you have an investment and it goes south and you say to yourself, look, I did my due diligence, right? I asked questions about this guy. I Googled this guy. I met him. I asked to interview 3 of his clients. I looked at look, there's nothing you could have done. But if you have an investment and it goes south and you say to yourself, did I really know then you only have yourself to blame, right?
That's a really good point. And
by the way, and we've some of us have been there. You have that sick feeling in your stomach when you go, God, I was too busy doing other stuff, right? I was too busy with everything else in life that was so important. I didn't have a couple hours. This was my money, right?
Yeah, and then it's like the one little thing that you were like, why? How did I not see that prior to?
And you're not going to see everything. You're going to make everybody makes mistakes, right?
Yeah.
If we saw everything, like it would be easy.
No, it's true. Nancy Porter says it best. No one's going to care more about your money than you.
Nancy Porter, who also is known as my grandmother. Hey guys, if you enjoyed this clip, be sure to check this one out right here because it's just as good or maybe even better. Cheers.